Hey, good morning. It is Wednesday, and we're going to spend a few minutes together checking in. We call it Coffee with PC, and as usual, I have my cup of coffee. Trying a new coffee. Found a really good deal on a couple pounds of beans from Guatemala. I've been to Guatemala and loved the coffee when I was there, brought some back, and always I'm intrigued when I ever see a bag of Guatemalan coffee beans. Tried it. It's okay. It's a medium roast, which is good, but not... I don't know if I'll ever try this particular one again, but I'm still a big fan of Guatemalan coffee. Actually, I'm going to drink every bit of this. So it must not be that bad, even though it might not be one of my favorite. I hope you're having a good week this week. Sorry about last week. I missed that. Some of you know, I'm sure, that Denise's mom had some medical issues, emergency surgery, and so we were caught up in that, back and forth to the hospital in Miami with her. So just with all that busyness, missed out. So sorry about that, but hope to get back on track with you this week. Always good to spend these few minutes with you. A couple things on my mind. Well, actually one big thing, and that is an event that we're hosting. Not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, February 18th. It's called a Share Your Faith workshop. Now, one of the reasons I should say that I kind of went ahead and did this when I was contacted by a local person who's with Evangelism Explosion. If you're not familiar, EE or Evangelism Explosion was started by Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, Dr. D. James Kennedy up in Fort Lauderdale. He wrote the program. Anyway, they've been around doing this program for a long time. This isn't the full program. This is a one-day Share Your Faith workshop. And when he called me to ask about it, I thought about it for a while. And here's the thing that kind of pushed me to say, it's probably a good thing to do. And that is this. As we've been going through the book of Acts, as we've been looking at the history of the early church and how that the church just grew, one of the things that we see time and time again with all of these individuals is they were so convinced of the resurrection of Jesus, and the faith that they had in him was so important to them that they were constantly seeking ways to tell others. And so one of the things that this Share Your Faith workshop hopefully will do, if you attend it, is to give you some tools to help you feel a little more comfortable telling other people about your faith. Now, certainly all of us that are believers in Jesus, that are Christians, have a story. We often call it our testimony. It's the story of how we came to faith in Jesus Christ. For me, I was pretty young. I was a child. I was about 7 years old. I've told this story before, but I'll share it just real quick this morning, just kind of in that vein. I was about 7 years old. I grew up in church. My parents were both part of a church. My dad was a deacon at the church from basically very early in my life. They took me to church in Leesburg, where I grew up. And so I was very much exposed to church things. And because of that, I have... some books that my parents would give me. One thing I really liked was trivia. I still do. We watch Jeopardy every night. Trivia is a big deal, but particularly Bible trivia. I thought that was interesting. And I was always a pretty good student, and I like to do that, to study and learn and know those facts. And so that was one thing about church that I really enjoyed, was learning. And we would play games sometimes, like Bible quiz games and the like, or any questions you'd ask in Sunday school or kids worship or whatever they called it back then. I really like to try to know the answer to that. And so I had a book that was one of my favorites. It was called the ABQ book. Ask Me Another Bible Question. Another B Bible question. Q question. ABQ. That's not ABC, ABQ book. And it had, it was an alphabetical book, A to Z, and each page had questions or facts, trivia from the Bible. And I liked that book. I read it a lot. It had, it was a kid's book. I was 7 years old, 7 years old when I got it. But one thing I never noticed that happened one day, my uncle, who was also in that church, and my parents and my pastor at the time came over and showed me that in the back of that book, it talked about that you could have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. It talked about that just knowing answers to Bible questions wasn't enough, that you could have you could know God through Jesus Christ. You couldn't just know facts, you could know God himself. And they talked to me about that, and they told me about who Jesus was, and that he came and he died on the cross and he rose again, which is things that I had learned in church, but for some reason in that moment, as they were talking to me, it made sense in a different way. And the reason it made sense is because I realized even if I knew a lot of facts about the Bible, about God or whatever, that I still had done things in my life that had displeased him. We call those things sin. So I had sinned, I had done wrong, I had broken God's law. And so I needed to ask God for forgiveness. And the way he provides that forgiveness is he sent Jesus to die. And so my uncle, my pastor, my parents sat down and that night explained that to me. And I understood it really for the first time. And I prayed with them to receive Christ. And I actually still have a copy of the book. It's not the same one I had. I found it years later in a used bookstore. I'm like, when I saw it, I'm like, I've got to get this. And so I do have a copy of that book because it is that significant to me, because it reminds me, as much as I might know the facts about things, more important is to know God. And so that's my story. We might call it my testimony. And if you're a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian, if you've been born again, if you've been saved, whatever word you want to use, you have a story about that kind of moment where you understood you needed to place your faith in God because you had sinned, you had done something against him, and you needed his salvation. And so when we talk about sharing our faith, really that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to share our faith. So we all have that story, but then we have tools that are going to be discussed, like is going to happen on Saturday, February 18th at the Share Your Faith workshop. Practical ways, not just to tell your story, but then to take your story and help somebody understand why they too need to place their faith in Jesus, and make them, through that conversation, give them the opportunity, if they're ready, to respond, like my parents and my uncle and my pastor did for me all those years ago. And so the Share Your Faith workshop is one way. Now, let me be quick to say this. There is no one right way to share your faith. There's no one perfect program. This is from Evangelism Explosion. They have a variety of things. This is a one-day thing that they're going to teach you a quick and simple, memorable method. They also have like a 12-week, much more developed course in sharing your faith. That's not what this is. This is a much simpler way, but it's a method. I've talked before on Sundays about the 3 circles method. Their tagline is turning everyday conversations into gospel conversations. And I actually have the app on my phone, or you can draw the 3 circles that help people understand what is the message of what we often call the gospel, the good news about Jesus, that we have sinned, but Jesus came and died to pay the penalty for our sins, so that if we place our faith in him, believe and trust in his death and resurrection, we can be forgiven and we can be made part of God's eternal family and have a home with him forever. You know, that's kind of the heart of the gospel. And so a Share Your Faith workshop gives you another tool to help you share your faith. Now, I know that for a lot of people that's an intimidating thing. For me at times, it's also an intimidating thing. I'm not the most natural at transitioning from a regular conversation into talking about my faith in God, or offering a presentation of how somebody can place their faith in God. So the more tools we have, the more ways that we have at our disposal that help us get more familiar, A, with what the gospel is and how to present it, and B, those transitions that can help us turn those everyday conversations into gospel conversations, the better. I have a toolbox. You probably do too in your house. Different people have different levels of toolboxes. I have some sockets. I have some old-fashioned wrenches. I have a few plumbing tools. I have a few power tools. And the thing is, those different tools all are useful, but you've got to find the right tool for the right job. And in our relationships with people, as we're trying to tell them about our faith, the more tools we have in ways to share our faith, the better equipped we might be in any particular situation to have that important gospel conversation, helping people understand who Jesus is, that we are sinners, that he's our Savior, and we can find in him forgiveness and salvation. And so this is just another one of those things. It's an all-day thing, by the way, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So there's lunch included. So there'll be some practical aspects to it. There'll be some things that you'll be taught how to do it. It uses your hand, your 5 fingers, as a way to communicate the main message of our faith. And so something you always have with you, right? You're always there. You can refer to that. So it has that memory component that is there. Again, just another tool. So I would encourage you, if you have Saturday, February February 18th, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. If you would join us, I think it will be a very good thing. It'll be in our fellowship hall. Lunches included. There's a small fee. It's $25, which includes the materials and buys your lunch. So you'll have that's there. We need you to register, though. We're trying to finalize our numbers, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. We've mentioned it in worship for a few weeks. And I've had some people come to me and say, yeah, I'm interested. I'd like to come. But I don't know if I've had anybody actually fill out the registration form and say, you can count on me coming. And so I need to order the materials soon, in the next few days, so they have time to get here by next Saturday. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. Because I think it's important, especially as we think about the book of Acts, how full that book is. And right now, we're talking about the Apostle Paul. He's in prison and he's on his way. He'll start his journey to Rome this Sunday when we get to Acts 27. And we've seen time, even when he's a prisoner, even when people are threatening his life, even his life is in danger, every chance he gets, what's he doing? He's telling people about his faith. He's sharing his faith. He's telling his story and inviting people to place their faith in Jesus Christ. We just talked about even King Agrippa. He tried to convert him. He tried to tell him in a way that Agrippa, the king, would put his faith in Jesus. And seeing the example of the early church and knowing how important that was for all of them, how fundamental it was, I thought it would be good for us to host this workshop to help us today have another practical tool, not some, but another practical tool when the opportunity arises as we're going through in our relationships with life to share our faith. So let me encourage you to consider joining us Saturday the 18th, 9 to 4. I'm going to put a link with this video if you want to sign up. I won't make you fill out the form, but if you'll tell me, yes, I'm going to be there, I can add your name to the registration so we can make sure we have material for you and we can plan, for lunch. We need to know how many people we're buying lunch for, kind of a thing. We want to make sure we have enough for that part of the day as well. So that's kind of my encouragement to you today as we've gone through the book of Acts, as we've seen time and again all of those early Christians, how often and how quickly and how eager they were to share their faith of the hope they had in Jesus. Let me encourage you, take this opportunity to put another tool in your hands, and literally in your hands, to help you be more comfortable sharing your faith. Again, just click on that link, or if it's on Facebook or on our website, wherever you're watching this. Let me know you want to come, and we'll make sure you're there. We'll plan for you. Next Saturday, the 18th, starts at 9 o'clock with the training. Get here a few minutes early. We'll probably have some coffee in Danish or something like that for you as well. So that's my encouragement. That's my Coffee with PC this week. Listen, always love to have you join us on Sundays for worship. We'll be, as I said, in Acts 27. We're in the last 2 chapters of the book of Acts, almost through with this book of the Bible, and we'll see where we'll go next. Love to have you be a part of that. So I'll just leave it with you. Please let me know if you want to come next Saturday to the Share Your Faith workshop, and I hope before then I might see you in worship or online if you stream our services. So let me say goodbye. Have a great Wednesday, and we'll talk to you soon.